Part 2 of Local 6 Legal Line, once again with Joe Rourke of the Bryant Law Center in Paducah, taking your questions at 1-888-208-6946. Jason, I promised we would get to your question, and we shall deliver right here. As he says, I have been married for 20 years. My wife wants a divorce, and she wants half of all the savings. Is that a law that's legal in Kentucky?
Yes. Presumably, Jason, if that money was earned and saved during your marriage and didn't come from an outside source like an inheritance or a gift from somebody's parents, those savings are going to be a marital asset that is subject to division, and unless they're offset by her receiving some other asset in exchange for them, or she agrees to waive that claim for some reason, those probably are subject to division, and that's probably going to mean right down the middle at half.
We have a question from Mark who says, if I get laid off or otherwise lose my job, how will that impact my obligation for child support?
Yeah, as y'all saw in the report here just before we started this, I mean, there's a lot of people that aren't working right now, and so for a child support modification to be warranted in Kentucky, you have to have a substantial and ongoing change in your income. And the question right now, lots of people have a substantial change in their income. The question is it going to be ongoing? How long is this going to last? And that'd be the main thing to look into. You know, if you were laid off at the beginning of this or halfway through it, you know, we're going on a couple months now, and so it's possible that you might have a modification warranted. Again, your key question is going to be how long am I going to be out of work, or what's my work situation going to be? If you think you're going to go back to work in a couple weeks, you're probably not going to get that change. But if you think it's going to be long-term, even with unemployment, you might go ahead and file that motion to modify your child support, because it cannot be made retroactive to a date earlier than the date you asked for it. So no matter how long you've been laid off, the earliest the child support can be modified is the date that you ask for it to be modified. So if you have questions about that, call an attorney, because it may be appropriate in this circumstance in these really troubling times.
Debbie wants to know, are there any limitations on who I can bring my children around during this coronavirus?
Yeah, there aren't necessarily any legal restrictions that I'm aware of, as long as you're not in a large gathering or group setting or things like that. The main thing to do would be just be sensible about what you're doing, as we all should be with everything. You just need to watch what you're around. I mean, again, it may not be that it would impact you necessarily, but you could then carry it to someone else who it might impact in a more detrimental medical way. So just be sensible about it. And again, if you want to spare yourself some trouble, don't have your kids running around all over the place and create an issue with your ex-spouse or the other parent.
Got time, I believe, for one more question. Someone says, if you have a spouse with drug problems and have visitation with your children, can it be supervised by social services?
The only circumstances under which I'm aware that social services will supervise the visitation is if the kids are in the custody of social services. That is to say, they've been removed from from your home by the cabinet. Social services has them in their custody, and then they can sometimes facilitate visitation. But even that's not an all-the-time thing. They're just not set up for that, to do it on a long-term basis. But you can ask for supervised visitation if there's a drug issue and it's necessary for your child's safety.
We can get one last quick question in here from Jane. Can you claim taxes on your child if you don't pay child support for any years?
Most of the time, an order of child support will say that you have to be current on your obligation for child support to be able to claim the child, and usually the child support tax deduction is assigned to wherever it's going to do the child the most good. So if you haven't paid any child support, you are probably not going to be able to get that child support deduction unless there's an agreement or an unusual circumstance.
Our thanks to Joe Rourke, Bryant Law Center, our guest today on today's Local 6 Legal Line.